Hello, everybody. So if you missed class week 3, so that would be any of the dates from April 9th through, let's see, was it the 9th? Yes, 9, 10, 11, 12, or 13. This is the makeup lecture for you, so you don't get behind and you can kind of basically have been in class with me, okay? So what did we do at the beginning of class? When we came in, we did our quick write again. And again, a quick write is a way to get us to kind of warm our brains up and to get us thinking about what we're doing today and to practice of writing consistently in a brief period of time under the gun, because that's a helpful skill to be able to get good at just writing under a timer, especially if you're planning on going to taking AP classes, which this class is for you guys, a pre-AP class. So the quote that we looked at was, "Judge a man by his questions rather than his answers." Voltaire. What did Voltaire mean by that? And how does that maybe connect to what we would be doing in class today if you were here, or about even the character Antonio in chapters 1 through 4? So in the quick write, in the chat box, you're going to do your own quick write. Time yourself, just be honest. And I want you guys to type up in 3 minutes just your thoughts about what this quote means. There's no wrong answer, just whatever comes to mind. Okay, now that you've had a chance to fill that out, some of the things that we talked about in class were questions show more about thinking than answers do. Answers you could just kind of Google. It doesn't really show how you think or see the world. They just kind of show what you know. Both are important, but questions can be maybe even more important because they kind of show even more of an understanding by knowing what you don't know. And what you're curious about. And it takes more effort to actually create questions than it is to spew out facts. And for Socratic seminars, the whole point of this is for us to come up with authentic, true questions that we have about the book to help us understand it and to help guide our conversation so that we can learn what other people think. Because asking a question, you're inviting someone into your life. Whereas answering something kind of is a period. It closes things. It doesn't open things up. So it's not so much what you know, but how you think that matters to Voltaire and for the purpose of this class. And also for connecting it to the book, if you recall, Antonio is called the Inquisitor. He can't stop asking questions. He's a very curious boy who's really an intellectual for a 7-year-old. And he has a thirst for knowledge. Like he's just dying to know things. And so he asks questions and really wants to learn more. So there you go. All right, so let's move on after the warm-up. Another thing I asked was, what's in a Socratic seminar? What is a Socratic seminar in the first place, actually? And what is its purpose? And what does one look like? So in the little text box, please tell me, what is a Socratic seminar? Why do teachers do this to you? Like, what's its purpose? And if you walked into the perfect Socratic seminar, what would it look like? Please answer those questions in the text box. So now that you've had a chance to answer that, some of the answers that we got in class were like, what a Socratic seminar is it is a conversation that's meant that has a lot of questions in it. It's a lot of listening, where a group of people try to honestly get together and figure out things together about what the meaning of the book is, and to learn other points of view than your own, to kind of hear what other ideas are, because sometimes it's really hard for us to see things, or we have a very narrow point of view, and the more ideas we get, the more depth and the more depth and complexity of thought we're going to get about a piece, and we might actually walk away having our minds totally changed, and that's a beautiful thing. So it's like a community event of sharing ideas, but it's inquiry based. The questions are important. And what's its purpose? Its purpose is to help you learn how to be a good listener, which is very important. And it's also to help you kind of bond as a group having an intellectual conversation about something that's got layers to it, an intellectual conversation, which are some of my favorite things. That's what gets me all warm and fuzzy on the inside, is a good conversation. So that's really what this purpose is for you guys to kind of have a communal experience of helping each other think more deeply and to help you really become a better thinker. So it's not about what to think, it's about how to think. And what does one look like? Well, you guys should be looking at each other, not me. Although I'm part of it, but you shouldn't just be answering me. You should be looking at each other. It's a conversation amongst each other. And it should be student-led, where you guys are asking questions with one another and listening to each other. I should be hearing you guys asking open-ended questions, and I should be hearing you guys referring to specific elements of the text, like reading quotes or paraphrasing like events that you're referring to. So you want to make sure that you're bringing up the text, right? And that you're including as many people into the conversation as possible. So like if people aren't talking, you want to be able to invite them in so that they can get their points. So it's a lot of talking, yes, but it's a whole lot of listening, and hopefully some interesting stuff comes up, okay? So to get your full points in a Socratic seminar, here, I'm going to get through this. No, we're not going to do that. Hang on. This was if you didn't know what it was. Come on, you can do it, Google. There we go. To get full points in a Socratic seminar, normally I do triads, but we can't. We're not going to do this. So ixnay the triads A. We're just going to be solo because we can't do groups, in this small situation. But to get your 15 points, well, it's 20 points total, but you get 5 for coming to class with your 2 really good questions that are open-ended and ready to go based off of text in the book. And then you need to verbally ask a thought-provoking question, so you got to talk. You need to refer to the text directly, and you need to respond thoughtfully to somebody. So you need to talk at least once, where maybe you respond to someone and then you connect it with your own question that you then refer to the book. Boom. So at least once you could get all 15 points. It just depends on how you shape it. Might take 2 times, right? You might have to ask a question and refer to the text and then maybe respond to somebody. But you could get it done with 1 time. And there's plenty of time with our small groups broken in half for everybody to be able to get their full 15 points, and then plus the 5 from being prepared for the Socratic seminar. Okay, so that's the goal. Now, if you were absent, though, you couldn't do this. So you're going to be doing a alternative assignment, okay? So you guys are going to have a discussion board you're going to be doing, and the conversation will depend on how many people were absent. If it's only 1 person, you'll at least get to talk to me about it. I'll be your partner. But if there's multiple people missing in class, you guys will be able to talk to each other. But this is what you do because it would be equivalent. Instead of talking, you're typing. And so you're going to start off like we do in Socratic seminars. I start the first question to get the ball rolling, and then you guys move on. So then how is this book subversive so far is the question you're going to be answering. And so using text to support your answer, how is this book subversive so far? And after answering this question thoughtfully with at least 1 strong paragraph with reasons and evidence, because, having just speaking for 30 seconds is a paragraph. So you gotta have a paragraph there. Please also ask a question from your reading, from your notes, that you would have asked if you had the chance to be in class, and make sure to connect your question to a specific passage in the book to give the question context. And then make sure to respond thoughtfully to your partner, from their question with evidence and reason to their question, okay? So it's just like it would be in person, but just typed, okay? So once you're done with that, you need to read the next chunk, which is going to be chapters 5 through 8, cinco through ocho. And it's the same thing. I want 2 solid sticky notes with some good questions in 2 different parts of the book, worth of questions connected to text where you put the sticky note. Depends on what, the text you're trying to ask. I'll be checking that when you come back. So just 2 anywhere in those 4 chapters, but make sure they're not both in the same chapter. Can you have more than 2 sticky notes? Yep. But at least 2, okay, to get your points, that I'll be checking when you come into class. And then I also, though, want you to look up the phrase magical realism. That's spelled MAGICAL REALISM. What is that? I want you to do a little Googling and try to apply it to the story so far. So I'm going to ask you guys to report out what you found. So I want you guys to know what that is, and then we're going to share out. That'll be the first thing we do when we get together is what is magical realism, and then we would then talk about how this book has magical realism in it. And then we'll open up with your questions that you got from your reading. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. If not, make sure to send me a question and reminder through email. Please don't do it in Google Classroom. It's so hard to keep track of all these different messages in all these different places. It's rough. So email me or send me a message and remind if you have questions about anything. Okay. So then let's move on to the second thing we did, and that was the Year in COVID photography poem project we're doing. So if you recall from last week, I just wrote out a bunch of stuff connecting to this photo that we're going to say is mine, but isn't, right? I found it. But if I was a student, I would have done something like this in my house. And because that was my situation, right? I talked about that. So I took my just word vomit of the things I was thinking about. And what I did is I did the second step, which is called read it out loud. Okay. And so I read it out loud. And as I did that, I was doing the third step also, which is cut the fat. So as I was reading, I was listening for pauses, places that feel like, ooh, I should make a new line for my poem here. And so I put these, if you look, there is like right here, I put these little lines to show where I thought, ooh, that's a breath, right? That would be maybe a new line, because that's how you kind of annotate a poem if you have to put it like in a paragraph. These lines just say, oh, new line of poetry, new line of poetry. Like you would do that if you're quoting multiple lines of Shakespeare, okay? So I did that for myself. I just put in these little places as I was reading it where it made sense. So like I would say, so I was reading out loud, I said, empty chair in an empty room. It's just a natural pause in my breath, so I put a breath mark. Sitting for, oops, didn't mean to do that. Why did it do that? That was very weird. I don't have control over the mouse. Let's go back. There we go. Sorry about that. Weird. So then I just kept reading, looking for natural pauses, and I would put that line. So, empty chair in an empty room, sitting for hours upon hours, watching the news, the counting of deaths, the counting of positive tests, the countings of days, weeks, months, thinking about all the empty chairs out there, from the increasing death toll. Who else will come home? Will I end up not coming home? So you can kind of naturally feel where it goes just by reading it. Like there's no right or wrong with this. It's just kind of like what feels right. What seems like that would be a good line of poetry. Okay, so this is modern poetry. You don't have to worry about following a bunch of like rules of meter yet. We're just trying to like make it look like a poem. So I go through that, and then I decided, ooh, I need to also think about stanzas. And so for stanzas, do how I chunk my poem, which you don't have to have stanzas, but I want to. If I ever see a shift, I know I'm going to hit enter and then start a new stanza. So I put a comment to myself, ooh, shift, because I'm talking about me here. But then I start talking about my mom. So that was a shift in like focus of the subject. So new stanza, right? So this will be one stanza, and then I move on to another one. And then so I kept reading out loud. I put an email arrives as I refresh for the umpteenth time. I was like, ooh, that's kind of ugly. I just don't like how it sounds to my ears. So I cross it out. I just want it to be nice staccato, right? Boom, an email arrives, right? To kind of mimic that kind of quickness of the inbox kind of updating. And then just put mother's email. And then I split this one up because I wanted to add tension. What do you want on the will if I die? Right? Because what do you want could be a positive question, right? Like, what do you want for Christmas? Nope. So it seems like it could be positive, and then nope, it's dark. Spent days avoiding a response. Think of both of what I want and how I cannot bear to say. A lot of times those fanboys are good places for breaths like for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, right? So ands and buts, that kind of stuff, or ors, those are great pause words, although you don't have to, but it works for me. So I just keep doing that, and then I was like, ooh, I need to add that, so I added that, and then, oh, a shift again. So I went from like, we're thinking about my mom's email to then listing the answers, so it has the question, and then the answer, so shift, new stanza. So then I started doing that listing, right? So I have item 1, new line. My favorite landscape painting, new line. So I'm just kind of thinking about, how do I want it to look? How do I want to break it up? How do I want it to sound? What feels natural? Because when you read poetry, it's kind of like singing. So you got to think about breaths. How many syllables can I get out in a single breath? And basically it's around 10, which is why Shakespeare used iambic pentameter, because 10 syllables is about as much as you're getting out in a single breath. Comfortably anyway. So I just kind of annotated my poem to make it kind of turn into a poem. So then I just used enter, 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 and made it look like that. Right? Ooh, let me get rid of that. Let me erase that. Get out of there. Okay, there we go. So, in any case, so now I've got it all looking like a poem, right? So I've got stanza, and then I decided to break that up more as I was redoing it. And then I broke this up a little bit, okay? And then I've got just all these different things that kind of make sense to me. And then here's my item, what I want, and then my response to myself. And they're all in prints because it's like my thoughts about it. Like I'm saying in the email, I want this, but in my mind, I'm thinking that. So it's kind of like I'm talking to myself, this kind of echo kind of poetry. So that's why I have it indented like that. So yours does not have to look anything like this. And of course it won't probably. But I just wanted to show you kind of how you can turn any paragraph into the shape of a poem, and then it kind of becomes one. And that'll help you kind of cut out the extra stuff to make it even more and more poetic. So we're just going to cut the fat, read out loud and cut the fat one time, just so kind of as a okay, here's draft 1 into looking like a poem. And then next week I want you to bring this with you printed, or if you can bring a computer to type on, you could do that too. Okay, so I'll send out a reminder, bring your computer if you can. So I'm gonna give you guys typing time in class after our Socratic seminar to be able to work on your poem. Okay, so you can I can go around and help people individually, and you guys can have that kind of just homework time. Okay, so make sure to bring your finished, at least put in poetry format, from your paragraph you did last week for homework. Okay, so again, I hope this makes sense. If it doesn't, please make sure to email me or send me a message and remind so I can help clarify, or you can meet me during office hours on Wednesday. But I hope that's it for the week. Okay, so to cap up your homework, you need to read the next 4 chapters, get those 2 good solid questions done and ready to go. Hopefully you'll be in class and you can participate verbally and not have to do another discussion board. And then you want to get your poem to look like this, as instead of like, let's see, how do I do this? It won't let me go back. Like that, right? We want to turn it from this to that, okay? And then your discussion board you need to do if you were absent, okay? So I know that sounds like a lot, but that's because you missed class. So it would have been only 2 things, but now it's 3, but it equals out in the amount of work. So I hope this quick and dirty lecture helped you kind of understand what we did today. I don't want to give away what we talked about in the Socratic seminar. That's a whole other day. We can always go back and talk about the earlier chapters if we have time when you do get to have a chance to come in class. But again, I hope you have a lovely week, and I hope I get to see you next week. And that's it. Bye.